When you say yes to something, know exactly what it is that you're signing up for and everything that comes along with it. Why do I say that? In negotiation, in time management, and in life in general, if you know what to expect from something, if you can plan for it ahead of time, then you'll always be set when the time comes. You'll always be able to deliver, you'll always live up to your promises, and you won't overpromise because you'll know when you agree to it if you're able to deliver at that point, or at least you'll have an educated guess. So I was negotiating or doing a bet the other day with my friend Tyler, and I was like, dude, we were just, talking pretty quick, and he was like, I bet you couldn't run more miles than me next week. And I was like, I bet I could double your miles next week, right? This was last week. And he's like, oh, I'll take that bet any day of the week. How much? I was like, $100 right now. So we agreed to it. The next morning, he called me up and asked if I was being serious. And it was in the heat of passion that I said that. So I was like, because I was a bit annoyed that he didn't think I could actually beat him by running more miles than him. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, this is probably not the best thing to agree to. Because if I have to run double his miles for the week, for one thing, I knew that he was going to run a half marathon, and he had a couple other long runs already planned. So I'd have to run basically like a marathon every other day for the entire week in order to be able to compete. For another thing, it's a moving target. If I would have agreed to that, then at any point in time, he could have just run 10 more miles, and I have to go out there and run 20. It could be Sunday night. I could be up by 20 miles. All he would have to do is run for like an hour and a half, and then he'd beat me. And then I'd have to go out there and keep running, or if we were tied or whatever it is, right? It's just a moving target. So what I should have thought about, instead of being caught up by emotion, I should have taken a second to say, okay, what exactly am I agreeing to when I say yes to this bet? If I'm putting money on the table, I need to make sure I'm not going to lose, or at least that I have a good chance, a decent chance of winning. It would have been a good bet if I didn't have to pay him $100 by not doubling his miles. That's a good bet because there's only upside for me. If I run more miles, that's my incentive to be able to beat him, if I double his mileage. So that's one area where it applies, right? Another area where this concept applies is for time management. Know exactly what it is that you're agreeing to when you say yes to an opportunity, to a new idea, to meeting someone for coffee, whatever it is. If you say you're going to meet someone at 10 o'clock for coffee in the morning, that doesn't mean that 10 o'clock and forward is, it's just that amount of time, right? It means that 30 minutes ahead of time, or even 45 in some cases, you have to start getting ready. And then you got to leave on time so that you can get there around 10. And then once you're there, maybe it'll go after a couple of minutes more than you expected. And then after that, you got to drive back home. And then there's that mental energy of trying to get back into the flow of things. So that whole commitment, even though maybe it was like 30-minute coffee, 45 minutes, is now an hour and a half to 2 hours of time committed, which is okay, right? If you're going to meet a friend for coffee or meet up with a coworker or study buddy or whoever it is, it's all right to take a large chunk of time to go do that. As long as you know from the get-go, when you say yes, that is what you're agreeing to. Okay, another thing would be in business. If you are saying, putting terms on the table, make sure it's written down on paper. That way, both sides know what has been agreed to. That way, they know what to expect and what is delivered. There have been a couple times in the past, I've already said this before, but I do woodworking, where I price out projects and the customer had a different idea in mind of the end goal than I did with the pricing. I thought that it was just going to be, a simple job, and, that if they weren't willing to pay X amount, that they wouldn't get that level of quality, right? Because if, let's say the market value is $10, but I'm only charging $5, well then technically my product is half as good, or I don't have to make it twice as good as I would go for that price. You see what I mean? Like, of course, that doesn't hold up in reality because, you have to have something functional in order to sell it. So that $5 price line is like 80% the way there, right? If you were like 90% the way there to having professional quality, unique character, all these different things, then you could make it 7,500. Oh, 7.5 out of 10. And then if you had that super unique quality, the brand value, the reputation, you had orders lined up and all these different things going in your favor, that's when you're able to charge that 10 number, right? And sometimes even more, because little gains at the top have massive wins, right? So I had to get clear with that customer from the start when we did this project that you get what you pay for. So if you're not willing to pay X amount, then you're not going to get X quality. You're going to get functional, but not perfect or not incredible, right? Which I recently have had to come to terms with because I like being a perfectionist, focusing on the details, making sure everything is absolutely perfect. But I can't do that. I can't scale a business if I'm not getting rewarded for that extra time that I put in, right? You will get taken advantage of by everyone in the market if you just do things for free. You give out handouts, you undercut your price, whatever it is, because that's how capitalism works. It finds the person who does the lowest price for functional quality and accepts that as the standard. And then it forces everyone else to follow suit, which is not necessarily a bad thing, once again, but it's just the way of the world, at least the way of the United States. So we gotta be okay with the situation that we're in and live inside of it and not live in this dysfunctional reality that's detached from what's actually happening, right? It would be nice to change things in a different way. For example, one way that I can break out of that cycle is instead of lowering my prices all the time, I can set a price point so high and provide value to get to that point. This is what Alex Hormozy says. That way, no one can question or compare me to other people in different categories. So, long story short, just know exactly what it is that you're committing to whenever you say yes to anything. And this is difficult because you make a lot of decisions during the day, but just make sure that you have time in your schedule, make sure that you have mental energy, and that you'll be able to deliver.